pass is caught. That's going to be a first down for the Ravens. 40, 30, 20, 10, 5, and the crowd goes wild.
All right, guys, welcome back to Play Action Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 6. I'm your host for today, Coach Lamont Johnson.
I'm Coach Stapleton. I coach quarterbacks.
I'm Coach Reames. I coach the Linebackers.
Coach Adams, coach defensive line.
And on today's episode, all right, we're going to take the time and get to know some of our graduate assistants. Some guys may know a little bit more about these guys. Some guys might not know exactly who they are. But they do a lot of great work for us, and we want to kind of hear a little bit more about them and their experience here being a part of AU football and just being a coach, being a young coach these days. So who should we start off with? Let's start with our linebackers coach. You want to say who you are, where you're from, where you played at, what you studied?
Yeah, so my name is Coach Reames. Obviously, I coach the linebackers here. I just graduated from Greenville University. This is like going into my year 2 of coaching. I played at Greenville University, and I played linebacker for 4 years there. A lot of special teams over there. And I'm originally from Monticello, Indiana, though. So.
Sweet. What did you get your undergrad in, bro?
In business management.
That's sweet. That's sweet. And what about our awesome D-line coach?
Yeah, so born and raised here in Indiana, about 30 minutes north of campus here. I went to Taylor University, played offensive line there for 4 years. Great experience there. So now doing a little bit different, coaching D-line now, but it's been a lot of fun. And I studied what's called Orphans and Vulnerable Children, very narrowed in, obviously, doing our best, focused on strengthening families, a lot of social work classes, a lot of psychology, political science, some global studies stuff as well. So really working to, uplift vulnerable populations. So that was what my undergrad was in.
That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. I like how specific it is. So, and then Coach, our awesome quarterback coach.
Yep. Well, I'm not technically a GA, but I'm technically called an intern. I'm from Concordia University in Ann Arbor, is where I originally played for 4 years. That's how I met you and Coach Coddington, obviously. And then I came here. I coached high school football right after I left college, and I've been here for the last 3 years. So yeah, it's been an awesome experience for sure.
Yeah, and I know for some people on the outside looking in, some guys are very eager and excited, to get coached up by young guys. Some guys, may consider themselves, a product of old school coaching. Also, what do you feel like some of the pros that comes with being a young coach?
Well, I know definitely for me, I went to the high school level first, so I was able to kind of refine myself, learn myself as a coach before I jumped back into the college level. But it's just awesome because, to the players, you feel like a safety outlet for them. And, like you said, like some coaches might feel like an old head to some guys, and I know I definitely felt that in my younger years. But just being able to be like a safety net for those guys, being able to relate to those guys and have good conversation and relationship has been like the biggest piece for me. So
yeah, like you said, this isn't year 1 coaching for you. You're still young to the coaching world, but there is still some transition coming from high school to college, I totally feel. So what about you guys over there? What do you feel like are some of the pros that, a young coach could bring to the staff and everything?
For me, it's just kind of being able to joke around a little bit more and kind of understand what their slang is and what they're actually trying to say and get across to you. Because sometimes you'll have that, disengage with an older coach, someone that's been in it for longer. But with me, I feel like I understand that a little bit more. And so it makes it a little bit easier for that way, communication.
Right. Yeah.
I think the best part for me is that, I was just in it, right? So I have that, commonality with the players where it's I think sometimes when they're interacting with maybe an older coach or someone who's a little more removed from their playing days, it can be like, man, you don't know what this is like.
Yeah.
I was just in it, man. I know exactly what it is. And, for me, I say all the time, I would never ask them to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And I think that's easier for me to say, obviously, because I'm a younger guy. I'm the one, putting the chest pad on, the arm crayons on, I'm getting in there with them. And so I think they know that I'm willing to go to war, and I just was in it, right? And I'm willing to, even sometimes put my body on the line. Some of my D linemen like to run me over a little bit, but so they know I'm willing to do that, right? And I have the ability to do it. And so, as long as I have the ability to do it, that's the coach I'm going to be. be. So
Yeah, I get you. You know, when you talk about the point where, you know, sometimes it may be harder for guys to kind of grasp some things from an older guy, and I think guys are more eager for that side of things too. You know, they want to hear some of your war stories, hear about some of the battles that went on, the camaraderie in some of the in your room, in your position room also. And you know, even now, just nowadays, like I feel bad for some coaches who don't play, because a lot of kids are jerks these days when they only think that, you know, just you could be a good coach if you did it or if you played. You know, a lot of the great coaches didn't even play this game. You know, but I do think that being able to get out there and, you know, run some reps with your guys, give your guys a really good look, I think that definitely goes a long way. And at the same time, you know, those guys kind of earn that respect. Sure. Us as coaches earn that respect, because, like you said, sometimes they may push you around, but you ain't gonna let them get the best of you. I know that much. So,
Sure.
Okay.
Never admitted L.
Yeah, that's what they want. I mean, hey, look, I'm guilty of it. You know, I tell my guys in the blocking drill, you put me on my back, all right, the person who do it, you know what I mean, you'll get a gift. I'll get you something, you know, get you something nice, may take you to Chick-fil-A, get you a sandwich or something. But
I'm gonna get my get back. I'm going right back.
I got put on my butt the second practice we ever had here. I owe somebody Chick-fil-A.
So, all right, so you know, Coach Adams, what kind of made you want to get into coaching right away? You know, I know sometimes some guys may, you know, go to grad school or start off at high school, or, you know, but what made you want to jump back in the fire right away?
You know, I think, you know, I dealt with a lot of, you know, some physical stuff in college, you know, some injuries and stuff. And, you know, I think by the time I was done, I was, people were burnt out. I wasn't burnt out, but I was just like, I think I'll be good. Like, I'll be good to go. And then, you know, spring ball comes around, and, you know, I got married last year, which was awesome. And so just like I'm telling my wife, like, I'll be good. Like, I don't need it. And then, you know, I see them practicing and all this stuff, and I'm talking with, you know, my high school coaches and, you know, my college coaches and my buddies that are still in it and also in the coaching profession as well. And I'm like, you know, you just kind of had that itch again. And so that's kind of how it was for me. Thankfully, my head coach from college reached out to, you know, Coach Coddington and made a connection, and it just kind of, you know, fell into place. And so, you know, and you mentioned, you know, I'm also in grad school, which also helps. So that was kind of a bonus that I can get further my education and also, you know, get to experience coaching a little bit. So.
Heck yeah. Coach Reames, what about you, man? What made you want to get into coaching so quick after you got done playing?
Yeah, so spring ball of my senior year, I actually helped coach at Greenville a little bit, because I had already known that, like, this was my goal, was to be a coach at some level, probably higher in the college level, like D3 or higher. So I always wanted to be a coach, and then grad school, like he said, was kind of just an added bonus on top of it. So it was super awesome that things kind of flowed really quickly here, and it worked out. So
right on.
So can you, because obviously you guys are both students as well too, can you guys kind of talk about that dynamic as being a coach and a student at the same time, what that workload is like?
Yeah, it varies. You know, during the season, it's a lot to kind of focus on both. Thankfully, in the off season, it's been a little bit lighter. You know, I mentioned my background, my undergrad, vastly different from, you know, an MBA, and so that's had to be, you know, an added learning curve for me, is just like pursuing a graduate degree that it isn't even really close to anything that I studied in undergrad. But it's a grind for sure. It's a lot of work, but, you know, thankfully I have a good support system, and you know, I'm able to stay focused on a lot of it, and it hasn't been too overwhelming. But it's definitely quite a load. So.
Yeah, I mean, the load is always there, and then, like he said, spring ball is a little bit of a relief of the load a little bit. In-season travel trips are probably the worst. In terms of, there's homework due on Sunday that they just assigned like on Friday, then it's got to be due, and then you also have the game on Saturday, you got the travel on Friday, then laundry when you get back, film upload, film breakdown. So it's a lot of stuff, but having somebody in the class that you know is always a helpful thing to have too. So we're in the same classes, which is super helpful. So we kind of bounce it off each other a little bit, and when there's a group project, we always do it together, so it's a little bit easier for that way.
Heck yeah. You know, Coach Shape didn't GA before, but, you know, I definitely remember some of my experiences as a GA. I GA'd twice, so I totally get it. And I got my undergrad in criminal justice. I got my master's in leadership. So I feel you 100% where you're talking about, you got your undergrad and you become a master, you get your master's degree in something that you didn't really think that you might have been doing. But I definitely feel you when you talk about certain seasons. Different times of the year, you may feel less stressful. The season is hectic. I feel like regardless you're taking classes or not, it's always hard. But definitely doing some of the dirty work, some of the tedious things in season can definitely get in the way of some of your personal time and other time that you have for homework and everything. So, and then some things are a little bit different, but I feel like the laundry, the film, those are like the staples of the GA work, And everywhere you go, everybody's GA experience is always different, But I definitely think I know for me, I GA'd at the NAI level, and I'm really grateful and privileged to be able to be involved in hands-on in coaching. Kind of similar to you guys, because you guys are coaching your own positions, right? And it's not like you got guys over you shadowing over. You guys have full autonomy over your rooms. So you guys want to kind of talk about that, like transitioning from doing the drills to putting together your own drills, or.
So for me, that's my favorite part. Being able to educate myself, watch the clinics, and as I've transitioned to take ownership of the room, I really appreciate the trust that everybody has in me. But then all that time spent, learning, growing as a coach, and learning the drills, learning all this stuff, and then being able to implement that in spring ball. And then watch the guys click with it as well has been super, super awesome for me to watch, and that's been by far my favorite part of it. I'm all about the development. I think up front, both sides of the ball, you can start at any level and you can progress to a certain level. If you're a receiver and you run a 5.2, have fun, right? You ain't gonna catch many balls, right? But O-line, D-line, it's all about development. It's all about progression, and so that's been my favorite part by far, is to being able to really instill that in my guys. So
yeah, taking over the room has been a huge responsibility. With Coach Delph, moving back to the DB's room, leaving me on my own. Not really, but I brought a lot of the drills over from Greenville that helped me in my development, so that was really cool to be able to implement them into what we do here, because I know that our reads weren't great last year, so I was trying to work on that as much as I can and boost that to try to get us better. And then I'm also going to be in the box next year, whereas last year I was on the field. So that's a whole different transition as well, that I'm trying to figure out what levels need to do what and make sure that I know exactly where corner safeties and linebackers all need to be on every certain play. But that's been super helpful in developing those guys. So.
Thank you. No, that's great. That's great. And like you said, gaining the confidence from seeing your guys develop, bringing the drills back that you did to help develop you, then add your own twist, it definitely goes a long way. And, like you said, the overall piece of developing the guys, that has to be important. And the same way back when we played, when we learn new technique and we master it and we feel good, our confidence goes through the roof. And I even think that goes into even when we incorporate a new technique as a coach and we create our own drill, or we borrow the drill and our guys respond well, and at the end of the day, as long as we're giving our guys the tools and techniques to play fast and fly around and execute, I think we're going to be in a good spot. So.
Yeah, I think it's just just to kind of add on to the question, just an awesome privilege just to be able to have our own room this young. I know I've seen a lot of, obviously, the D1 and higher programs. It's usually the head, the main position coach, and then a couple assistants with them. And just to be able to, how old are you guys? 23 years old, right? And so I was running the quarterback room here at 23. So it's been a huge blessing and a huge honor to be able to be trusted that much to run your own room at that young age. And I think that just kind of goes to, it all kind of boils back to Coach Coddington and his ability to pick us as coaches. And, I think we've done a great job so far. So.
Yeah, no, like you said, man, the same way that we focus on, put a prime on developing our players, like you said, our guy, Coach Coddington, does a great job of giving us as coaches tools to develop us as coaches also. He takes the time and sits down and pours into us just like he does the players. And it's like every coach, doesn't take the time to sit down and do that with their coaches. A lot of coaches leave the professional development on the coaches. But, the same ownership that we give our players, our head coach definitely holds us to that standard also. To be sharp and be on our stuff. So that's one of the perks of Gene at the lower level. I think it all kind of sounds good and looks good. Being at that higher level. But there's definitely some fruit to be gained in that realm too, just being behind the scenes. But I think again, just coaching at the lower level makes it that much more fun and engaging. Because it's hands-on.
Yep, without a doubt. So kind of going off, we talked earlier about, what are some of the advantages to being a young coach? What's kind of been the challenge going from playing to coaching immediately at the same level?
So sometimes when I first got here, it was hard to maybe earn the respect of the room just because I am that same age and I didn't play as much as they thought I should play to become a coach at that time. I played more special teams when I was a player than actual linebacker, but I did every drill and I was at every practice and never missed. And then they also brought me back to help with the LBs in the spring, so I had already got a lot of knowledge on it. But to gain the respect of the players was a little bit rough at the beginning, but over time it's actually gotten a lot better, and it's more like a friend with a little bit more respect than a friend would be. So
yeah, I think for me, I love being the guy that people come to with their problems, but sometimes there's a little too much that may be shared, right? So you gotta be able to
therapy session.
Yeah, which doesn't bother me, right? But it's also at the same time where it's being able to be set a boundary, right? And I think that hasn't really been hard for me, but I think sometimes when the boundary is set, it's kind of been a kind of a shock factor to some guys. So just being able to consistently have a healthy, player-coach relationship has been, super important to me. And I think, another big challenge for me is, I came from a program that was really, really important to me, and I grew a lot there, spiritually, emotionally, and so. But I'm also the type of guy that I know there's the right way to do something, and so when I maybe don't see it happening a certain way, or I think it should, I want to say something or I want to step up. So being able to acknowledge that there are other ways of doing stuff. And other way of getting a job accomplished that maybe I wouldn't always do or maybe I wouldn't always agree with, but being able to have the humility to say that I don't know everything has been super important for me to just remind myself every day. I came from a program, Coach Reames from a program. You guys came from your respective programs, and I'm sure there was ways that they did things there, and then when you get just a new place, it's kind of a reset, right? And it's I have the stuff that got me to where I am, but also what can I learn? And that's been a challenge at times, but also it's been a fun opportunity to grow and just sit back and just soak up as much as I can. So
I feel that a lot, and that's one of the joys of coaching, regardless of what age you are. Every time you join a new program, it's an opportunity to learn how to do something or how not to do something. Mm-hmm. And it's not to say that you learn how not to do something, not to say that it's wrong. It just might not be your cup of tea. It might not be. You might not value the same thing that way, or you may put a little twist to it and make it your own. So I totally feel that. And but yeah, it is huge to have those opportunities to learn, and those opportunities will never not occur. Like I said, every time you get an opportunity to join a program, it's an opportunity to learn. So, but just thinking back a little bit about my GA experience, you guys got family nearby, not too far from the school and everything. Like I said, for me, for a little bit, that was kind of a challenging part for me. Mm-hmm. Not only going off being a first generation college student, but being away from home. We on limited money as a GA. So things get hard. But you also learn how to manage your time and budget. Make time for. Well, me, I had to figure out ways to make time to call home and fill my cup. That's how I always kind of referred to it. Whenever I felt like I was missing home, my family cup was real low. So I'm calling home, talking to my mom, calling home, talking to my nieces, talking with my grandparents and those type of things. Any advice for young coaches or anybody who's interested in becoming a GA?
Be able to be flexible would be the biggest advice I can give. You could be coming from somewhere where you were the guy, now you might not be the guy. you could know a lot of stuff, but you're somebody in front of you that's helping coach the same position as you, or coordination could be going the wrong way, or what have you. There's a whole bunch of stuff, little stuff that could be going wrong. A lot of like intricacies within the staff, within the players themselves, could be making the whole thing go awry. So just be able to be super flexible when you first get into it.
Yeah, that's really important. I think another thing that I would say, where like in my personal like how it's been for me over the last year, is like make sure the guys in your room and the guys that you're going to be interacting with, like, know that you've got their back, and know that, like, yeah, obviously, you know, we're just now meeting, and there's going to be a lot of, like I mentioned with the coaching, right? There's going to be different ways of doing things. They've done things a certain way, right? And it's like when anytime change happens, there's going to be some conflict. But just knowing that it's like, take your ego out of it. Don't be afraid to, you know, use the coach voice. You got to find the coach voice. For those of you that don't have it yet, you have to find it. Everybody does eventually. But it's like, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to, you know, step out and, you know, use the voice and be commanding of a room. But also at the same time, make sure that you're doubling down on the love of the guys. You're doubling down on how you interact with them. Like, that should be the main thing. Like, X's and O's are great, ball's fun, but it's like, how are you going to develop the guys, you know, that you're coaching with, but also how you're going to develop the guys that you're coaching directly. So it's all about, you know, relationships and doing things the right way.
And I'll throw one more in there, is be yourself. You don't have to just absolutely just change a complete 180, and just be who you are. Just be yourself. I know, like, when I came in, I was a little bit too much myself in the way that, like, I was like a little too chill when I first started coaching, and that's definitely cranked up over the years. But like, be yourself, filter out some stuff, and like you said, find that coach voice and find that respect in the room, and you'll be in a really good spot.
Yep.
It's like, I mean, if you're not yourself, like,
They'll know.
they'll see right through it.
They
Like,
see through that crap. Yep.
You don't have to put on a front. Like, God made you the way you are, and just own it, and use that to further the guys and, you know, give him glory. So
Exactly.
that's the most important thing.
And Coach Cott, he says that same message. You know, that's one of the things. That's one of the things that he talks about through the hiring process when he brings in coaches. He wants us to be ourselves. We don't need a bunch of Jonathan Coddingtons or, you know, Chad Montgomerys. Like, we don't need a bunch of those guys. We all bring value to the team overall by being ourselves.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
the same thing goes as a player too, man. Be yourself. You don't gotta try to be like other guys. You know, be yourself. Figure out what you bring to the table and own it. All right.
Be yourself in alignment with us.
Yep.
Yep.
Be yourself, but be in alignment with how we do things.
Yep.
So
Exactly. So
appreciate
You like cats, be about it, right?
Yeah.
If you don't talk to Carson Burbank. You know? I don't know.
Appreciate y'all hopping on, coaches.
I appreciate
Keep
you
doing a
guys.
great job, and let's get up out of here.
God bless. Go Raiders.